It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi again, Alan. Good evening.
Good evening, Fred. Good evening, as I guess those looking on Zoom or whatever, the Zoomcast, can see. It's dark here in Maine, and whatever.
Well, we survived the heat from the day, and it's a lot cooler to do this in the evening. So
absolutely, it was a scorcher even here in Maine. So yeah.
Well, we've got some news to get to on the
Right.
latest Smart Driving Cars newsletter. Carnegie Mellon University's Henry Posner lays track for future of rail transit, and that's on top this week.
Yeah, it's great. Henry's one of the classic ferroequinologists of the world. I recall when he first came to Princeton as a pre-frosh in the fall of 1973, I believe. He introduced himself as Henry Posner III, ferroequinologist, and you knew that he was going to spend his career in railroading, and he certainly has. And this is, another chapter in innovation in railroading that Henry's doing with his pop-up metro.
Well, tell us what that means. What is the pop-up metro?
I guess the interesting thing that Henry brings to this is that the basic theory is that a lot of places think that they would like to have some rail transit, some in places, and if we sort of look at the recent history, last 20 years, 30 years, of introducing rail transit in the U.S. and in some sense around the world. Most of this is called light rail or whatever. It takes an enormous amount of time and a substantial amount of money to go out and finally build it and open it up for service. And I think what Henry's concept here with this is that basically there's a lot of existing rail lines, low density rail lines that in fact could serve as rail transit. And what you'd like to do is be able to try it before you really invest a bunch of money on it. So what he's done is he's developed the rail vehicles that could operate on light density lines that exist, and for relatively little upfront money, instead of doing a proof of concept, he could do a proof of market. In other words, he can go in there, operate, and see if any customers show up. Is it serving anybody? Is it really doing, what the analyses and so on and the plans might indicate? And so this is a much better way, as he puts it, to test the market and basically do proof of market before you go out and maybe spend more or enhance the rail line or extend it than just a proof of concept.
Could you think of it as sort of like a trolley type of concept?
Well, it's light rail. I mean, it's basically rail service. It's any of the commuter rail or situations that one sees. This is the kind of service that could be provided to multiple stops along a line at a frequency, at whatever the frequency of service happens to be. I mean, one of the prime places that we're looking to basically deploy this vehicle is to replace the existing rail equipment that operates on the Princeton branch, the so-called Dinky, between Princeton and Princeton Junction, that currently operates on Jersey Arrows, which New Jersey Transit is basically converting and no longer will operate, and instead operate double-decker service on the Northeast Corridor lines, much more efficient, much better equipment, and so on and so forth. It's not really appropriate equipment to put on the Princeton branch. And so instead of going out and looking for other rail equipment to put on that, Henry 4 years ago, I guess, decided to invest in the development of this technology, if not just for the Princeton branch, but for a lot of other shuttle type services, and that could be provided almost anywhere in the country or in many different places. So, and not only in this country, but around the world. So, in a sense, this is kind of interesting. And the other thing that he sort of saw coming, in some sense, is that the fact that, my goodness, the mode of propulsion is kind of important. And at least for this first set of rail equipment, these are battery powered. And since they're the first battery powered rail equipment in the Western Hemisphere. So, so he's out there sort of leading on this new thrust to say, oh, yeah, well, you could put catenary up there, or you could put a third rail out there. But the investment in a lot of these light density lines, where you might want to use the existing rail line to provide this kind of service, that additional investment in just that kind of electrical equipment is non-trivial. So here, and what you would want to do anyway, is given the advancement in battery propulsion and so on. In fact, a battery powered rail car is really interesting. So he's sitting here with actually hardware, so that it's not some somebody in somebody's imagination. This is sitting there operating. Go kick the tires, or in this case, kick the steel wheels.
Really, really interesting. And with all of the talk in Washington with the infrastructure bill about putting more money into rail systems, who knows?
Yeah, right. And in some sense, it's so hard to get dedicated infrastructure, and these rail lines exist all over the place that could still provide this service, and within urbanized areas, and so upgrading with relatively small amounts of money, one can go in and provide this kind of service, as opposed to, let's go out and put a dedicated lanes of highways and dedicate them to bus rapid transit that nobody's going to use. I mean, cut it out. You have to go do all that investment and see that, my goodness, there's nothing there. Anyway, that's the thought.
Terrific. Well, you've got an item in the newsletter that was released some months ago, really, from the California Public Utilities Commission. It's a headline that says, "Decision authorizing deployment of drivered and driverless autonomous vehicle passenger service." And I guess this is a pretty significant thing from the PUC there.
Yeah, I think so, because if you look at what California has done over the past, what must be at least 10 years now, in trying to prepare that state for really autonomous taxi, or really driverless operation. It's been sort of a two-pronged approach. One has been with the California Motor Vehicles Commission, and that has been more to sort of set the regulations of having to do with how well and how safe technically the technology works. But then on the other hand, with respect to the business of then taking the technology and converting it into a viable business, which is really what the technology is being developed for, is to provide mobility to people or goods. Then there's in California the Public Utilities Commission, and they're the ones that are responsible for making sure that the business cases, the business environment, the way that you actually deal with the sociology of the technology and delivering mobility is really important. And I think that for other states, including New Jersey, one should, as one is striving to catch up to California or do what California has achieved, one should pay attention. And that's what I'm putting it out there. One should really read this and see, hey, let's learn from them. Let's learn from Arizona, the really two big places where this has gone on. Learn from Florida, where that's another substantial place. Learn from Texas as to what they're doing, but really what the California Public Utilities Commission has put out there is a result of a lot of people working very diligently on trying to, really, as I like to say, deal with the sociology of making this happen, so that in fact value is delivered to society, as opposed to, hey, we got another thing to show as a video or to put as a PhD whatever on some shelf and da.
Really interesting. And of course, the push in New Jersey continues too, towards trying to make something like this happen here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying, we're working on it. A lot of people are really, focused on it. We haven't sort of gone public on this yet because we're still, putting our ducks in line. But this is very, very important opportunity to provide, especially given the thrust in Washington these days really is to look at providing leveling the mobility playing field and dealing with equity issues, and really looking at what are the opportunities to provide substantial improvements of mobility to segments of our society that have really been left behind by the automobile. And to me, that's the sweet spot of this technology, as well as allowing Amazon to deliver things to my front door more easily and cheaply. And hey, I'm all for that, whatever.
Car and Driver had a couple of pieces that you are mentioning here in the latest newsletter. One is headlined, "Do you know how well your car drives itself?"
Yeah, and I think they did a nice job with that one, and going down and arraying all the various driver assistance systems that are coming on the market. And as we've discussed, now for 9 years or more, when we look at this technology, we really look at really three opportunities with this technology. One is to substantially improve safety. The other one is to substantially improve comfort and convenience. And both of those are really focused on the way we've, those of us that have been fortunate enough to have access to an automobile, deal with that system. And as we've talked many times, the safe driving aspects of it deal with, the unsafe aspects of the automobile or of driving, is because we end up misbehaving in its use. 90-some% of crashes really have a human misbehavior as a factor, and we call it here misbehavior because it is. If you don't pay attention, you're misbehaving. If you're sleeping, you're misbehaving. If you've had one too many or more than one too many adult beverage, you're misbehaving. Can't call it anything else. If you're looking at text and reading text and worried about your phone, you're misbehaving. If you have road rage and whatever, you're misbehaving. And so really it's a technology to basically intervene when we misbehave, to, hey, cool it a little bit. We're not going to really let you crash. And since, most of our discussion with respect to Tesla has to do, my goodness, they need to go back and focus on doing that. Don't hit stationary objects in front of you. What the heck are Teslas doing hitting stationary objects in front of them? They're supposed to be able to drive down in a lane, stay between the lane, and do the acceleration, deceleration. Geez, don't hit anything too. I mean, why can't you do that? But we'll get to that one.
We will.
The second one is, what Tesla has brought, and the most of the discussion is comfort and convenience. It's really kind of nice if you have a system that that you basically set it with a separation you'd like to follow cars and set it for the max speed you want. And it just settles in there, intelligent cruise control, and does that. And you don't have to sit there and look at how fast am I going. Oh my goodness, I have to be careful. I have to be, set the darn thing and relax. Of course, it shouldn't let you set it at some outrageous speed, and they should take manufacturers should take some responsibility there. But those are comfort and convenience features. It makes it easier to go around a curve and so on and so forth and stay in the lane. Why can't it do that for you? Of course. I mean, to me, that's what Tesla's autopilot does, and does very well. But as this article points out, there are a lot of other folks, essentially all other car manufacturers, who jumped on that. We said very early with respect to this is like the new chrome and fins for selling automobiles. What brought people into the showroom in the 50s and the 60s will bring people into the showrooms in the now 20s because of the comfort and convenience features. And you see essentially all the manufacturers are out there doing this kind of thing that basically provides comfort and convenience. The important thing that this points out is they work, but they're nowhere near perfect, and they're nowhere near everywhere. Plus, you have to pay attention, because you don't know when they're going to crap out. You don't know when you're going to have to pick up and, whoa, this thing is going off the rails. And it's not because, they're lousy. It's just because Mother Nature is out there. Sometimes she throws you a spitter and you can't hit that sucker. Then she'll throw you a change up. Whoa. And so you got to be ready to, take over. And, the way these things have been sold, cars have always been oversold to us. I mean, Madison Avenue's done it, whatever. The Mad Men did whatever. They sold dreams, not realities.
And as we've said before, the name full self-driving,
I mean,
it doesn't mean full self-driving.
Well, the only fool there is full of, and I won't say it because, of course, everybody'd be unhappy if I said that. But you know what it's full of? It's not full of self-driving. It's full of something else. And
it's very good driver assist, I suppose.
It's very good driver assist, and people should relax. Now, there are always going to be some, look at whatever. I'm going to get my 12 seconds of fame on the inner tubes and what they do, da-da-da. I mean, what are you going to do with those folks? Fine. I mean, let them, I don't know. No patience for them at all. And and there should be oversight systems to make sure that people don't, find their, ways around this and become cute. Although, in that arms race, there'll always be, some 13-year-old out there who will figure out, oh man, do. So I don't know.
Well, the point of this second story, which was headlined, "It's not just Tesla. All other driver assist systems work without drivers too." The thing is, they're not calling it full self-driving. So, and they're leading people to think they can get away with it.
Yeah. And it's really unfortunate that Elon, has gone down this and hasn't backed off and hasn't, walked the whole thing back. He should have a little bit of humility here and say, sure, the objective is to really deliver to the customer a great deal of comfort and convenience. But look, to do it so that in fact it really does it all is so non-trivial and has to deal with, again, the sociology piece, not only the technology piece. That, my goodness, going being 80% or 70% of the way is delivering you great value. But come on, relax and pay attention. Okay. Work with me here instead of, going off on some, oh, wow, look at me, mom, no hands. I mean, not impressed at all. Your mother wouldn't be impressed either.
We'll be back with more. But first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, look for the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Some great information there that will help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, as you probably know, can be a smart way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The website again is motoetf.com. Alan, in the latest newsletter, you've got a piece from the New York Times titled, "For Many, Hydrogen is the Fuel of the Future. New Research Raises Doubts."
Yeah, I think with respect to this whole, business of not only hydrogen, but the whole EV thing and so on, and saying these things are, the magic bullets, and let's get everybody all converted to these things and so on, and it's going to save everybody. I think one has to look at the details of what it really ends up taking to do this, and look at the whole life cycle of these things, and to make sure that in fact they really are going to deliver the fundamental values that are associated here, and things like if you assume you can do carbon sequestration and do that perfectly and so on and so forth, and also go and make all that stuff happen, and then still with that, when you look at it, you roll your eyes a little bit and say, really from an environmental standpoint, you haven't moved the needle. You really have to take a look at some of these things, and with respect to the EV, as we've pointed out, several times, I always like people to just look at the Lawrence Livermore energy charts to see, if you're really dealing with energy, you've got to look at how we as a society, or we as a state, or we as a world actually use energy, and where in the heck does it come from? And if we start all of a sudden saying, hey, yeah, we want, electricity is the thing, where's the electricity going to come from? It still ends up having to be produced. And how is that being produced, and so on and so forth? And, just to say, oh my goodness, we're just going to have the sun do it, well, hey, if we had the sun doing everything, then we could have the sun do more. We don't have the sun doing everything yet. And so, that's the simple thing.
I suppose related to this, you highlight a piece, it was in the New York Post, was headlined, "Don't Buy the Latest Climate Change Alarmism," and it's talking about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the report that came out from there, drawing reactions really from around the world.
Yeah, and yes, and this is also ripe for fake news also, as all over the place. I don't think that the things that we're pointing to are fake news elements. This is as best as I can tell, solid news. And when one looks at the solid news piece, yes, one wants people to pay attention. But I think one wants to also be honest here about paying attention and say, okay, how do we really deal with this? And in some sense, sure, it's people say, well, you can't give mobility to poor people. I mean, my goodness, that's going to increase energy consumption. Well, you mean poor people shouldn't have the opportunity to improve their quality of life by going someplace and using some energy to do that? That should all be reserved for you, Fred, or for me. I mean, cut it out. These are very tough issues, and people need to think and need to do a lot more analysis.
There's a piece from Auto Week that made the newsletter it's titled "Watch Plus Testing Level 4 Autonomous Truck Without a Driver."
Well,
what do you make of this?
I didn't like it. And I guess it's obvious I didn't like it.
Totally irresponsible. Is that a clue?
I think it is totally irresponsible. this business of here, look, ma, no hands, or here, look, ma, there's nobody in it. I mean, cut it out. I mean, nobody's impressed by that. Okay, what would be impressed with is, in fact, it operated and didn't need anybody in their intervention.
And we should point out this was in China.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, but it almost doesn't matter that where it was in the end, and that my goodness, if you could honestly, go from really A to B, an A to B that has a market that really needs it and really could use the fact that you might, in the end, not have to pay for a driver to do it, and you could provide some real societal and economic benefit out of doing that, then, geez, at least demonstrate that you can do it with somebody in there so that in case, hey, you didn't cross all the T's or dot all the I's, somebody's in there saving it. And in fact, if you report it properly, saying, hey, there were no interventions by the person that was in there, the person did nothing, then I think we'd all be really happy that you did that. But to go out there and say, oh no, I'm going to do that and not have anybody in it and not have a fallback in case Mother Nature is out there throwing her changeup or spitball or, slider or her that curveball that she's going to strike you out on. Who knows? To me, it's irresponsible. That can't happen here in the United States. People go out and do that before they're ready, before and they do it for social and market reasons. One shouldn't be out there testing without some fallback, some attendant. There's just no reason to do it that way. No reason at all. And I can't believe that certainly California Public Utilities isn't going to let you really do that. No. No state's really going to let you do that until you've really demonstrated you've been out there, you've done it X number of times. You pick a number X, and it's gone. That person wasn't needed. Now you're willing to take the risk, people. You demonstrated. Go ahead, okay. But you've done all the tests with somebody there in case you needed them, so that you could learn from the time you needed it, fix it, go out there, do it again. Hey, I fixed it. But somebody's in there. And I can't believe that the Chinese government let that happen. I just don't believe it. Sorry. I think the government's much more responsible. So I think the whole thing was faked. It isn't. It's
for the public relations value.
For the public relations or something. Look at us. We're the greatest. I mean, I just watched that steering wheel doing this as it's changing lanes. I say, what the heck's the matter with its lateral control system that it's doing this as it's changing lanes? The steering wheel's doing that. What? And then they say it's traffic filled highway. I guess, before the pandemic, I went a few times to China. I think I was in a few traffic filled highways in China. The aerial shot of that test wasn't very traffic filled. There were 4 cars, no trucks. Holy mackerel. I mean, cut it out. And, since when in such an open highway in China is everybody in the left lane going slower than people in the right lane? It seems to me every open highway, I haven't seen that many. Boy, in China, they have a lead foot, man. I don't buy it.
A couple of other tests to report on. Motional says it's to begin testing driverless vehicles on the streets of Los Angeles. We've got Mobileye in New York. They just are putting out another vehicle I just read, and now Motional in LA.
Well, at least LA is, more reasonable than Manhattan. I mean, cut it out, man. Never mind. I just don't think Manhattan's the place to do this, and it's not the place to test. And I don't know what you're trying to prove. Okay, and if you're doing it in LA, I certainly hope you're doing it in watts also. And as I put in the smart driving cars, and not just the Brentwoods of LA. You can take whatever meaning out of that you want.
Daimler and Bosch are ending their joint robo taxi development project. I don't know that it got very far.
Yeah, I mean, it's caught me a little bit by surprise, or not surprise. The value of this technology to the existing auto manufacturers is, one, to improve safety, which is the safe driving car aspects. And to me is, which they haven't done as good of a job as they should have, is to develop an automated emergency braking system that doesn't hit things, especially stationary things in your lane ahead. Okay, I mean, cut it out. I mean, there's another one that came out. I don't know, maybe we'll get to it. Some guy testing autopilot, whatever, in who knows where, Colorado.
No, this was Yosemite, and we want to pay homage to Yogi Berra on this one, who said when you get to a fork in the road, take it.
Yeah,
apparently there's a problem with a fork in the road.
Apparently there's a problem with a fork in a road, and they show you the image of the fork in a road, and there's a lot of room in it.
There's a boulder there at this fork in the road at Yosemite,
in the middle,
involving a Tesla,
and it's going 25 miles an hour, and the person didn't see it coming and grabbed the wheel and avoided it. I mean, again, maybe it was staged. I have no idea. This is, hey, maybe autopilot can't handle that one, but if you're paying attention, you're able to grab that wheel and not hit that boulder. I think. I mean, maybe that really is superhuman, and you have to, unveil your big S and take over. I don't buy it. I mean, again, but Tesla and all these vehicles shouldn't be hitting boulders at 25 miles an hour. It should recognize that thing is big, stationary. The vehicle's heading right straight to it, and it's only going 25 miles an hour. Hit the brakes. Cut it out. Really? Now, maybe it hit the brakes here and there was gravel and it slid, and the coefficient of friction, and it shouldn't have waited until 1.6 seconds before collision, and it should have started at 2.5 seconds of whether to do. Come on, these things can be intelligent enough to do that. So do that. And that really, and getting back to the Bosch Daimler thing, that's the safe driving car aspect. And the self-driving car aspect is the comfort and convenience. That's, when Mercedes came out with the 997 package, or 99, whatever it is, package in the 2014 S-Class, I couldn't get to my Mercedes dealer fast enough to buy that sucker. I mean, I was the first on my block. Loved it. Well, it didn't work quite as well as it should, but boy, that stuff, as we said, is like fins and chrome. Sells cars. Now, whether or not you then make the car so that you can, have that car, take your 12-year-old to Little League practice, sit there and wait for her until after practice, and bring her back home. That's the driverless piece. Put that out there to consumers to maintain the vehicle and make sure that, that 12-year-old, nothing happens to it every time it goes. Yeah, a lot of people might like to have that capability. They wouldn't have to chauffeur the 12-year-old. Boy, that better be good. boy, you better have a lot of liability insurance, and go to Munich Re and buy a lot of reinsurance and so on, because boy, if something happens along the way to your 12-year-old, when Daimler sold you that vehicle, I don't want to be in that courtroom. And so therefore, maybe the autonomous taxi aspect of this for a Daimler and a Bosch, who basically supplies Daimler and all the other whatevers, maybe that's not their market. Maybe that's not their sweet spot. Maybe there isn't an ROI there. Maybe it's not for them. Now, it can, of course, be for a Waymo. It can be for an Argo. It can be for a Cruise. It can be for an Aurora. It can be for an Amazon. It can be for a lot of other folks. But maybe it's, maybe the Daimlers and the Bosches don't have the stomach for this. They've got a nice business, thank you. Okay, it may not be Tesla's market val. Who knows whether or not that holds up or not.
Interesting, and it leads us to a survey that you report on in the newsletter. Another survey, we should say. Almost half of consumers in the U.S., U.K., and Germany believe it will be more than 3 years before fully functioning autonomous vehicles are available, the survey shows. Now, you wouldn't necessarily argue with the finding here, but what does the survey mean?
Well, I'd argue, why is it only 50%? Why not 100%? I mean, the 50% that think it's going to be here within 3 years, what do they define as fully autonomous vehicle? Okay, as I say, is it really one of these things that you can go and it be on your list as you're out there really trying to decide you're going to buy a new car? Which dealer are you going to go to buy one? And is that going to be on the list? And it's going to be a choice. And what that vehicle has to do is be able to, I think, take your 12-year-old to Little League practice and wait for her and bring her back home. Now, if you put it that way and say, hey, when you think a vehicle that can do that kind of thing, maybe you don't have a 12-year-old, something else. Maybe it's to take your grandmother someplace, or maybe it's to go to your grandma's house and get the blueberry pie that she made for you and bring it home. Who knows? Whatever you're going to use a driverless vehicle to go schlep something for you. It's a schlepping vehicle. And if you put that in the minds of the persons, and say, hey, when do you think these things are, 3 years from now, you're looking to buy a new car, you think it's going to be one of these on the list? If you get 10% of the people to say, hey, yeah, I think it's going to be on the list, as I say, that's not going to be on the list. Certainly not my lifetime. I may not last 3 years, whatever. But, I say it's not going to be in my kids' lifetime. I'd almost like to say it's not going to be in my grandkids' lifetimes, but I guess the driverless piece, the fully autonomous vehicle, is not a consumer product. It's a fleet product by a responsible entity that is out there providing mobility for either people or goods for the benefit to improve the quality of life of the people that are consuming it. Period. And that is not a consumer product in and of itself. My humble view.
And perhaps moving some goods as well.
Sure, of course. People or goods, and people or goods, and the goods may very well come first, and so on. I mean, the opportunity that just popped in everybody's mind 15 or so years ago with the DARPA challenges was that, oh my goodness, it may be possible for us to put enough intelligence in the vehicle so that it can do it itself without requiring any other changes in the infrastructure except paint and a little bit of smoothness. I mean, that's the great leveraging point. as opposed to having to go on. We do have how many trillion in infrastructure bill, but everything's now infrastructure. So what really goes to infrastructure? But that's a whole other question. We aren't going to go down. But that's the dream of this, and that's the opportunity. And the opportunity is why, because out of that you should be able to provide enhanced mobility to a lot of folks and a lot of goods that really haven't had a good way to travel. And to me, that's value to society. Fundamental.
Talking about moving goods, we're at our final story here. Amazon's $1.5 billion U.S. air cargo hub opened for business. This is in northern Kentucky. Opened up on Wednesday. Here they come.
Here they come. They've been working on it. I don't know what FedEx thinks, but it looks like Memphis for FedEx. When Smith opened up FedEx, the Memphis facility, it really changed FedEx and made it whatever. And this really does something for Amazon. And
this is really going to be the center for their U.S. cargo network.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, it's hub and spoke sort of concept with respect to air freight. FedEx proved this. 30 years ago. How long has it been? That really, if you really want to move things efficiently, and certainly in North America, you just create a hub and spoke. That now there's more than just the Memphis hub. Now with FedEx, there's one at Newark. There are a few others around the nation, and so on. But this is exactly what Amazon is doing. And instead of going out and buying that logistics, that goods movement operation, from other providers, they've decided to do them within its own sphere. We all see the Amazon Class 8 trucks out there on the New Jersey turnpikes of this world moving stuff. We of course see the Amazon vehicles bringing them to our homes, and of course they had to look at air freight because in fact, if you do want to have the quick delivery, at some point you've got to really move some stuff long distance fast, and you do that with air. So I don't know if they're investing in cargo ships that get stuck in the Suez Canal or not, but probably not. But anyway,
well, we've covered it all, Alan. Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Planes, trains, and automobiles. Well, that's what's interesting about transportation and the whole logistics system. And not just to move freight, but to move people. It takes a village. it takes a lot of pieces. And yes, we are talking about one piece with respect to automated operation. I still think the technology is doable. The sociology is non-trivial. And we just haven't done enough yet with the sociology, but I think, the sociology is non-trivial.
Stay tuned. Thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, wherever you turn to for podcasts, and your smart speaker can play us too. You can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please stay safe and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Fred. Enjoy, everybody. Enjoy the end of the summer, and hopefully it'll get a little bit cooler.